My name is Ming Juandeng Westfall. I am the head of research at COTRI, China Outbound Tourism Research Institute. I would like to welcome you all to the 2018 EU-China Tourism Year webinar, which is part of the World Bridge Tourism Project. Both are supported by the European Union. We will introduce these activities later in the webinar in more details. First of all, I would like to use this time to have a little bit housekeeping to help you to get the most for this webinar. So I will then show you how to use this control panel on your right hand side. If we go to the next page, we will see on your screen, you can see that on your very right top corner, there should be the gray control panel says Go to Webinar Control Panel. And if you don't see that, don't panic. Just click this arrow that you can see, the orange colored arrow, and then you can open the control panel. Once you open that, then you will see our question function on the next slide. So we really would appreciate that you will participate and also hand in your questions. You can type in this question field on the control panel, and then we will see as presented here on this end. Then we will have two Q&A sessions. During the Q&A sessions, each will be 10 minutes. My colleague, Director for COTRI, Professor Dr. Wolfgang Out, will join me to together do the Q&A session. In case we have more questions we couldn't answer, what we are going to do, we will answer your question by emails after this seminar in next week. So now you can see also on the control panel, there are other functions. There are the handouts. I strongly recommend you to start downloading while we are talking, because on different person's computer, from our experience, sometimes the video doesn't really play well. So if you already can start downloading these handouts, in case sometime the video doesn't play, then you can play it just on your computer. So use these handouts to get the information. As you can see, sometimes the video doesn't play and it shows a totally black window here. Then you can then play the videos through your handouts. All right, and at the very end of this webinar, there will be a post-webinar survey. And so don't rush away after you finish. Make sure you also join us for the post-webinar survey. Through this survey, it will only be like a few minutes. We would really appreciate to get your answer, because that will help us in the future to provide better webinar for you. First, I would like to show you a welcome speech. This is from Dr. Eric Philippat. He is the head of Unit Tourism, Emerging and Creative Industries of the Directorate's General Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs, DG Growth.
Good afternoon and welcome to this first webinar on China. As Milton Berle used to say, if opportunity doesn't knock, build the door. And this is what these business-to-business matchmaking events are about. But to grasp opportunities in these occasions, you need to be well informed and well prepared. And this is what this webinar is all about. Why China? Because it is a very attractive market, but also because we had fruitful exchanges with China stretching back thousands of years. Why now? Because last July, the President of the European Commission, Mr. Juncker, and the Chinese Prime Minister, Mr. Li, announced that 2018 will be the EU-China Tourism Year. The Commissioner responsible for tourism, Mrs. Bienkowska, made clear that the Commission has very high ambition for that tourism year. The objective is to attract more Chinese visitors, but also to better prepare for them, so that they return home with a smile and stories to share. The Commission is therefore supporting various joint marketing campaigns to show what the EU has to offer, business summit for the tourist sector, and also those business-to-business matchmaking events. Because we believed in win-win solution, this program is prepared in close cooperation with the China National Tourism authorities. So we are very pleased that you registered in large number for this first webinar, and without further ado, let's learn together. My name is Eric Philippard. I'm responsible for the preparation of the EU-China Tourism Year on the European Commission side. Thank you for your attention.
Professor Dr. Wolfgang Gerhardt, Director and Founder of COTRI. So he will start the presentation with you. We'll introduce a few information, but before everything, he will also go through today's content and also the program of the webinar. So you will have an idea about what is going to introduce in this webinar and also the timeline. Thank you.
Okay, so now it's my turn to say also welcome to everybody. Thank you very much for giving us your time this afternoon for Europeans, and maybe some of you also listening from other parts of the world. So as you can see on the screen, hopefully, this is the content of what we have prepared for you today. You already listened to Dr. Eric Philippard, who is the key person in organizing many of these events, and hopefully you have no problem with running your GoToWebinar control panel. So we are very proud that we have an opportunity to present the results of a survey done by a company in China called Kairos, which had been specially done for the World Bridge Tourism Project, and which will look at the current and future developments in tourism flows from China to the EU. This will be followed by a presentation from COTRI, characteristics of the demand structure of different segments of the Chinese market and the resulting opportunities and challenges for European small and medium-sized enterprise tourism service providers. After that, we will have the first session of question and answers, as my colleague Dr. Lang Westphal said. So please feel free to send us questions via the question function on your panel. Also, we have received a lot of questions beforehand. Thank you very much for those of you who sent us these questions. And as it has been said, we will try to answer as many as possible. The others will be answered for sure by email. So after the Q&A, then Dr. Dan Westphal take over to talk about the specific structures of the Chinese tourism industry and how to be successful in your interaction with Chinese business partners. And after that, the last part will be two short presentations, one about the ITB China, which is happening for the first time in May this year in Shanghai, and some more information about what is World Bridge Tourism and what is the 2018 EU-China Tourism Year. At the end, we will have another Q&A session to have more of your questions answered, and then we will have some closing remarks at the end. So let me start by talking about the results of the Kairos survey, which was done in a very interesting way, and it's very recent. It was done just in December last year. And it has been using what is called netnography, so looking at the content of blogs and forum posts and reviews and so on in the Chinese social media, and no less than 26,000 reviews about European attractions and activities have been downloaded and analyzed, and you will see in a minute some of the very interesting results that gave us. Using ethnography is a way where you can rather unfiltered listen to what the customers, what our visitors really think, and this has been, especially in China, proven as a very powerful research instrument. We at COTRI are using this also all the time. So, and what Kairos also did is that they mapped the travel routes of both package tour and independent travelers in Europe. So, and this also gives you, see graphically a very clear idea about the differences between these two groups. So, some main results. So about 11%, more than 11% of all the outbound trips going further than Hong Kong or Macau, special administrative regions, actually in 2015 arrived in Europe, and for last year it was about the same amount. And we see that it is not just leisure, not just sightseeing, but many Chinese come to us for very different reasons, for sport, outdoor activities, health, honeymoon, wedding, cruise, growing market, and some countries where football is a big topic, like in China, also increasingly attracting Chinese football fans. So, and many of the Chinese travelers are there to have their own ideas and their own hobbies, and they want also to see this, and many have been moving beyond just sightseeing and shopping maybe as well. So they want to experience local culture, but they will still be happy if they feel that they are welcomed and that they can feel like they are at home. So when we look at the Chinese image of Europe, basically we see it's still a mix of old and new components. So it's, on the one hand, it's still seen as a shopping destination, at a kind of museum of history and culture, and it is also has an image of being exotic from a Chinese point of view, and fairy tale-like. So all the old city centers, and of course we have also a fairy tale route and things like that. So this is all seen as something magic, maybe as opposed to the modern and, well, not very atmospheric cities you find in China. So for that reason, Europe is seen as an ideal place for photographers, and Chinese, as you probably know, like taking photos very much. And also in Europe, we have no shortage of famous people, and Chinese travelers like to follow the footsteps of famous Europeans, but also, of course, of famous Chinese who have been traveling before them in Europe. So, and we can see well, this classical idea, Chinese are 45 people sitting in a coach, jumping out, taking a photo, jumping back in, is disappearing. So we see a lot of Chinese people now employing self-drive, so they rent a car and drive by themselves. They go on nature adventures with the help of boats, of kayaks, of sailing boats. They do walking tours, they do both in nature as well as a city tour, and of course biking also becomes more famous again and more searched after again for especially younger Chinese tourists. So what are they wishing for? So they are looking for the new themes and the new products which they have heard of, which they can dream of. Very strong is the point they want to interact with local life. There is, of course, always a question of language barriers, but also a question of openness from our side. Europe is seen as a quiet and relaxing place compared to the stress you have in China. And so if there is some local story connected to China, this will be very welcomed. And we can see that what the package tourists are doing and what independent travelers are doing is quite different. So we will always have to differentiate at least between these two kinds of groups. So what they say, what they would like to see mitigated, where they still see some problems, is language and communication problems, which often is in the form that the Chinese visitors speak English, but they meet Europeans who do not. For obvious reasons, recently very important, the question of security and safety, and sometimes bad food, which normally means bad Chinese food when they go to Chinese restaurants. Difficulties getting around, finding their way, finding out how to buy the right ticket for public transport, and sometimes low perceived value for money. And we have to see, we are of course in a global competition, and what the money we ask for our services will be compared to what you get for your money in other parts of the world. So this is a long table which shows you the arrivals for all the major destinations from the year 2006 on. And don't worry, you don't have to look at all these numbers now. The slides and the whole webinar as a video will be available for download from tomorrow. So you can download this tomorrow or next week and then look at all these numbers in detail. So just to say clearly, so the top destinations are France, followed by the Russian Federation, which is counted as Europe, even so this is also including many trips to the Asian part of the Russian Federation. And after that, the usual suspects, Germany, Switzerland, Spain, Austria, and also included here Turkey. Well, the 2016 numbers look different from that, and then Italy, Greece, but then already the Czech Republic among the top 10 as one of the very successful smaller destinations in the last 3 years. So, and you see there's that goes down all the way to 7,000 arrivals in Lithuania and in Cyprus. And I will not talk about the pitfalls of tourism statistics in general and Chinese tourism statistics in particular, but it's just on the left-hand side enough to say that, of course, these numbers are arrived in different ways by counting hotel arrivals, by counting border arrivals, and in some countries it is based on nationality, so Chinese passport holders, even so we have a lot of Chinese traveling within Europe, so students or expats, or by resident, which means that a British person working in China for an international company is also counted as a Chinese. So, but this is for another time. We will talk more about tourism statistics, not today. One slide we want to show you is the internet penetration. And when we talk about social media, it is interesting to see that for the relevant age groups, practically everybody in China is online. And even in the age group 40 to 49, you can still see that for the urban areas, more than half of the Chinese are online. And those who have enough money and the possibility to visit us in Europe can be quite surely 99% of them will be urban Chinese. So, and maybe that's a word of caution when we talk about the Chinese outbound tourists. Don't forget that maybe 5 to 6% of the Chinese have a passport. So actually, we are talking about these persons who have the possibility to come to us when we talk about the Chinese here. So, what are the results of this ethnography study of Kairos? They put this into 3 groups. They said there is there are major themes, growing themes, and emerging themes. And you see this nice word clouds on the right-hand side. So first, Europe as a museum of history and culture, and you see the Louvre, many cathedrals, bridges, the Hofburg, the Arc de Triomphe, and so on. But also as a shopping place and as a marketplace, so both for big department stores but also for boutique shops, and you see souvenirs are important, but also value for money. But also you see some special places like the Getreidegasse or some companies which are here. And you can see above artwork, very small print, low price. So it is a bit bigger than the cheapest, but it's not the lowest price they're hunting after, rather to find something interesting and special. So exotic Europe means activities in ice and snow, northern lights, very famously now, fairy tales, hot balloon trips, all this, and connected to this, the fairy tales, small towns, Hallstatt, where maybe you know there's a one-to-one copy of the whole city in China, and other small places where Chinese find what they can't see in China. This half-timbered houses and this romantic, old-fashioned cities. Photographer's dream means that we have certainly many beautiful things, big and small, to take photos of, and for many Chinese it is to show their friends while they're traveling, uploading photos on the social media and afterwards to show them where they have been, also the differences to China. And something which is more important for the Chinese travelers and maybe for some European travelers is that you have roads like the romantic road in Germany, for instance, which had more than 2,000 WeChat articles mentioning this, so that you have orientation where to go and what to follow. UNESCO World Heritage places also are fulfilling this function, that you get an orientation what is the most important places to look at. So following the step of famous people, this is something for a group-oriented society as China always very important, and some of these are maybe more famous than they are with us. So for instance, Yao Pei, which is who's the architect who built, for instance, the pyramids, the entrance to the Louvre. So, and as an overseas Chinese is of course for Chinese people very important, but we see Sissi, for instance, and Mozart and Picasso, and my favorite painter Caravaggio is also there next to Harry Potter. So it is all modern and old things, and Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales again also here. Nature adventures, so getting close to nature, getting enjoying the fresh air is important. So you may remember the European Travel Commission did a first ethnography study. They are kind of pioneers in this, where they found that blue skies were one of the main attractions for Chinese tourists coming to Europe. This is still the case, but it's not just enjoying the fresh air, it's also doing things outside, from skiing to mountain climbing to hiking and so on. Or walking in cities and enjoying that you can walk inside the city and still can breathe freely. So interacting with local life, and this in the form of food, so cafes and restaurants, or in the form of flamenco, Christmas markets, bullring fights, film festivals, and so on. This is something which gains more and more importance, and of course is an opportunity for all kinds of smaller destinations to get their share of the market. Finally, quiet and relaxing Europe, so spas, but also the general idea of slowing down gains importance for the Chinese tourists, as is of course the point that they are looking for Chinese life and Chinese culture within Europe. So on the right hand side you see two examples, so that a harbor in Norway where Chinese students are working, and it became famous in China for that, or Blankenese, which is very close where I'm sitting at the moment. We are here in Hamburg, where COTRI is located next to Beijing, and so there's a cafe owned by a Chinese person, and so then many Chinese people know that and they go there because there is a connection to China. So a look at the network of the tour package itineraries by country, and this is a graph which there was a lot of work going into this. There are more than 6,000 European tour packages as they're offered by CTrip, which are shown here, how the connections are, and again download the whole presentation and you will have more time to look at this in detail. Interesting here is this is by country, and it's package tours, and compare this to the next one. This is by city, and you can see that behind this rather simple structure of moving to the neighboring countries, there is a very complex pattern of visiting cities. And so of course you can see this is not according to geography, this is according to the itineraries. And if you compare these two with the third one, this is independent travelers. You see immediately that for independent travelers, certainly the same main destinations are important, but also a lot of smaller ones come up here. So more diversity, and also more of which places are visited, but also more diversity in the routes which are taken from one place to the other. So this is another example of the fact that you have to treat independent travelers differently from package tour travelers. So the last slide from this part is, so what do they like and what is maybe annoying to them? And this is based on 1,000 reviews which in the Chinese social media which mentioned any of these points. And you can see on the left-hand side the positive stuff. So let's say 11%, so that is 109 out of 1,000, 11% mentioning rich culture and history, 9% talk about the beautiful and unpolluted environment, 8% talk about many photo opportunities, and also 8% talk about great shopping, and so on, going down to points like at the bottom, still 4% say it's not too crowded and there's Chinese-friendly offering and information. There is a possibility to use Chinese payment. So it shows also that the activities and the investments of the European tourism industry in the past years have been already paying off to some respect. Of course, more has to be done and can be done in this respect, be this accepting Chinese credit cards like UnionPay or Alipay with a smartphone and training your staff, doing certifications and so on. On the right-hand side, you see what are the problems, and the main problem is language and communication. Almost 10% are saying that, and the feeling of a place not being safe, and that is connected to, of course, political questions, but also to, for instance, pickpockets. So Chinese used to carry a lot of cash around, so and therefore there have been numerous incidents where pickpockets were targeting Chinese customers, and so difficulty to get around and low value for money. What we have been saying, and you see 54, so 5% still say there's a lack of Chinese language information, and 4% say there's a lack of Chinese-specific services. So, but I mean, the good thing is you see only 3 out of 1,000 say we Europeans are rude people. So, so what are the recommendations of the Cairo study? So, first one is help extend the comfort zone for by making sure that your services are done according to the wish of the Chinese. Target a niche and make sure why should they come to your place, especially if you're not Paris and if you're not London or Munich. So, and see what kind of offer you have, and you can be sure niches in China tend to be hundreds of thousands of people, and enough to your specific offers. So make sure that the internet can be used, and Wi-Fi is available for free. Make sure that they can have a local experience, so that they can be actively participating in activities, so they have something to tell their friends about and take photos of. Chinese are very happy if you give them a small gift, or you give them something extra, so that's something which has not been in the itinerary or not been in the offer, that they can feel, okay, this is a way of showing friendship and appreciation for their custom coming to you. So if you have any kind of China connections, make sure you think about this and make sure you talk about this. So any famous Chinese person have been to your place, or somebody you have invited to come to your place, a movie star, a sports star, a politician, will be very interesting for Chinese visitors to know that they are in the same hotel or at the same destination, in the same museum as some famous Chinese person now or in the past. So therefore be visible. So make sure that you are having a Chinese website, that you are having a Chinese WeChat, that you have been you encourage your Chinese customers to talk about you. If you have Chinese students in your city, make sure they write about their life on China, on the social media and so on. So there is a desire to go off the beaten track, and you can help them. That means they go to your place. So this is the end of the first presentation. And so as I said before, please ask questions, and while looking at the questions, well, there are obviously a lot of them coming in, and my colleague Binyo and Dagmar Spal is taking care of them, and we will answer them a little bit further on. But if you stay with me a little bit more, then we will talk now about the bigger picture based on the results of Kairos, looking what the studies of COTRI, China Outbound Tourism Research Institute, have been showing towards the question of what are the characteristics of the demand structure of different segments of the Chinese international tourism source market, and what are the resulting opportunities and challenges for European small and medium enterprise tourism service providers. And, well, needless to say, many of this is also true for non-European companies as well. So just quickly, the big picture, we see China is, since 2012, the biggest international tourism outbound source market. So these are the numbers we are calculating based on the host statistics. But we can also see that the development from 15 to 16, 133 to 137 million, that doesn't sound a lot. So actually, that represents only less than 3% growth rates. That's shocking. But don't worry, if you look more careful, we can see that trips to what we call the rest of the world, so beyond Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, still grew by about 12%. So what has been happening in the last 2 years is that trips to Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan fell by about 5%. And so therefore we can see that last year was the first time less than half of the Chinese travelers were actually traveling only to Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, and more than half were traveling further, which is, of course, from a European perspective, very good news. And this is represented also, if you look here at the columns. So the blue is the rest of the world, including Europe. The red is Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, and you can see that the blue one is still growing nicely, and it is the red ones coming down a bit. And so our forecast for 2017 is that so probably Greater China will be at about 0 level, not shrinking anymore, but we will still grow by 10% this year. So in what does it mean in absolute numbers? So there were about 66.7 million trips to Greater China and 70.1 million trips to the rest of the world. Bigger part of this is staying in the neighboring destinations in Asia, but of course also coming to us. So the heroes last year, we look at 2016, have been Nepal and Vietnam, both with more than 50% growth, but that comes after they had been going down the year before. And you can see this is more exotic locations from our point of view, like Chile, Egypt, South Africa, Philippines, Mexico. They all have been growing by more than 30%. Looking to Europe, we see especially those destinations which attract individual travelers had healthy growth rates, smaller, of course, starting also from low absolute numbers. Iceland, for instance, had almost 70,000 arrivals last year, after they had 17,000 arrivals only 3 years ago. And also places like Poland and Serbia and other Eastern European countries had very substantial growth. For the major destinations, we had the sad terrorist events, and also in the Chinese media rather exaggerated news about the problems which would be created by the refugees coming to Europe. And as Chinese are still having to go to many places, so some of them say, okay, well, we maybe postpone our trip to Western Europe for a year and go somewhere else. So if you look at the numbers, Spain, Italy, France, Greece, Switzerland all offered more than 10% losses. Countries where the majority of visitors is business travel, like Germany, fared a bit better. And globally, the biggest loser has been clearly Turkey, where you saw that almost 50% less arrivals in 16 were there compared to 15. So we are talking about a market which is maturing and which is segmenting. So we still have, sorry, we still have the Chinese in the so-called smaller cities who still do their first ever trip to Europe, and they will still rush around, and their main interest is to can say afterwards, okay, I've been there. But for the more experienced travelers, this is no longer what they can brag about. They want to travel in small groups with their friends or colleagues or family, and they have different needs and interests. So we call them the second wave Chinese travelers, being on average a bit younger, more independent, and many of them having studied overseas and working for international companies. And this kind of self-organized travel is, of course, much easier now than it used to be, because it's very easy now to obtain a passport and hard currency, and many countries now offer multiple choice visa, and also we in Europe, in the Schengen area, have been moving forward in this direction successfully. So therefore, we see there is a segmentation, and so even in the level of age, this is the point. So we have been talking, if you're a bit familiar with the market, about the Baling host and the Dueling host. So people born in the 1980s, people born in the 1990s. But we see now already the Ling host, so people born after 2000, becoming more and more important. And also, this actually is a word I made up. I hope you accept that. So, excuse me, the Liu Ling Tians, so the people born before 1960, so the older people, or the best ages, let's say, entering now the market. So we can see that there have been some studies that this have been the people below 18 and the persons above 55. This has been by far the fastest growing market segment. So we see not only people interested in different activities or interested in sunshine, more or less, depending where in China they live, but also different age groups coming. So again, this is all about niches, but niches are big in China. So we talk about three aspects. We talk about segmentation, we talk about dispersion, and we talk about immersion. So, and these are the opportunities for European SME tourism service providers. So segmentation is an opportunity because many Chinese have a hobby, or more than a hobby, it's something you can call a serious leisure. So they don't start their decision-making process by saying, oh, what can I do in this country? But they say, okay, my hobby is golf, mountain biking, bird photography, whatever, Western food. And they say, okay, where can I find a good place to pursue my hobby? So if you are visible in the communication in their special interest fields, then you have a chance to attract these customers and not just stay for one night and also spending considerable amounts of money. The second opportunity, dispersion. So this is an important point when we talk about Chinese outbound tourists coming to Europe. It's not just that we say, okay, we can get more customers. In many places in the high season at the main tourist destinations, you're fully booked anyway. So there's no point in having more people coming when your hotels are full already. So with Chinese customers, you have a chance, especially with individual customers, to bring them to those parts of Europe and those parts within a given country in Europe where there have been not so many other visitors yet. If you give a good story, if you give a good reason, if you are offering products which are important for Chinese travelers. And at the same time also, well, I think we all agree the biggest problem in Europe in tourism is seasonality. So that Chinese, as most of them, are not coming here for beach or sunshine. So are also much more interested in attractions. If you do something especially for the Chinese market, then they will also come at times of the year where the weather is not blue sky and sunshine all the time. If there is a reason to go there. So if you do maybe just one example. So I did last week. I was in Wallonia and I did a Chinese tourist welcome training for tourism service providers there, and we discussed that this is an area where Mr. Sachs, the inventor of the saxophone, was born, and they are having a saxophone museum there soon. And so if you organize a jazz festival for saxophone players and you bring some Chinese players there to join, you can do this in November or in February or other times of the year when it's this low season. And the Chinese interested in jazz, and there are several millions of these, will come to visit regardless of the weather, because they will be interested in the topic and the activity. And the third one is immersion. So we see that there's a lot of discussions now in the tourism industry and also in tourism scientific circles that what the wonderful Copenhagen people call the end of tourism, that there's no localhood instead of being a tourist. So there's the wish to be part of the local culture, if only for a few days. And we see that a lot of Chinese experienced travelers are sharing especially this wish that they say, okay, I want to stay 3-4 days and I want to have as many instant contacts and friends and activities and experiences as possible, so I can really feel like I am a Danish person, a Portuguese person, a Serbian person for 72 hours. So if we can offer this, then also inbound tour operators and other service providers have a chance to have a growing business with Chinese visitors. There are also challenges, of course, connected to this, and so we can see that you need to identify the suitable market segment in China. So you need more market research and better strategy development. So the time where the Chinese were coming just by themselves are over. The low-hanging fruits have been picked. So you will need to invest more in this kind of research and strategy development, and this obviously for one SME is not possible to do this. So there is the challenge of successful networking to do this together and to agree on a common strategy. So you have to still tell stories about your place in China, but preferably not different ones, but one strong one. Dispersion, this is something where, in my experience over many years, a lot of destinations see themselves as a destination which has a traditional market, like we are a beach destination or we are landscape, countryside, we don't have much to look at. And finding that Chinese visitors are, for instance, looking for quiet and relaxation, so the absence of a lot of halubalalu can also be a product. So you have to also critically examine yourself and say, okay, is our self-image still the right one for this new market, or is our self-image hindering us to address the new markets? And for immersion, probably in these days we are all experiencing in global politics, it's necessary to say. So immersion needs on the host side, on our side in Europe, an openness, so that you are based on information, based on preparation, based on training, on knowledge, that you we all of us are embracing foreigners and persons from different cultures coming and visiting us. This is something which certainly not only in tourism is a very important state of mind we hopefully all have. So this is all I want to say at the moment here, and so therefore I will hand over to Mignon Westphal and ask her to start the first part of the question and answer session. Mignon, please take over.
Yes, thank you, Professor Out. That was really interesting information, and also the report. And also it really gives, I believe everyone has got a good idea now about the Chinese market in general, and also specifically to the Europe. I say that because I see a lot of incoming questions on my side. So what I'm going to do is I will try to address a number of questions, because we won't be able to finish all of that. I will also try to combine some questions related to people have already submitted before the webinar. So some of the questions, they are a bit overlapping. And I will invite Professor Out to also make some comment after I address those questions. So here, actually, Professor Out, earlier you already mentioned that there is a question, coming in asking whether Chinese are interested in sun and sand, and whether they are interested in beaches and beach activities. I would like to answer this question to say, yes, they are. Just from very recent release reports, we also learned that Chinese travelers, they are very interested in nature and also aquatic and also beach-related activities. But what is important for our audience today to think about is that how much Chinese associate Europe as a destination, and also where you are located, your region, and also what kind of activity or service that you are providing. How much Chinese will associate you to the beach and also sand and sun. So by understanding this and also think that's true, and also to get to more research, you will then understand how to position yourself. Because as earlier Professor Out mentioned that even for some destination that is not really like a major beach attraction for Chinese tourists, but it's not necessary to always be the summertime. Chinese also travel out of the summertime, especially during Chinese New Year time and also national holiday time. These are the shoulder seasons that you can still find out what kind of activities that you can combine with your the resource around your destination to still promote the sand and sun and also the beach and beach activities as part of your package, rather than only focus on that. So this is my answer. And Professor Out, do you have anything to add to this question?
No, I think we maybe rather try to give short answers so we can have a number of questions answered.
Yeah, okay, all right. So I also have someone was asking, I have 2 or 3 questions actually quite relevant, similar. They were asking about statistics, asking about numbers, about the split of FIT and group travelers coming to Europe, and they were also asking, besides the Chinese peak travel seasons, like other shoulder seasons, what's the available statistics? So I would like to first.
Maybe I can answer this one.
Yes.
Yes. So one thing, of course, yeah. So Chinese statistics are quite tricky, and so the question how many different Chinese persons are represented by this 10 or 11.5 billion arrivals in Europe are not easy to answer. But clearly, what we can see is that the percentage of FITs is growing. You can say from quarter to quarter, and that in most European destinations, more than half of the arrivals are now self-organized travelers and no longer package tourists. And one of the good things about China's outbound market is that the Chinese travel patterns also have a seasonality, so there are also more visitors in summertime coming to Europe than in the other seasons. But as many Chinese do not have organized paid holidays yet, they are less bound to seasonality than we are, and also as we said, they are less bound to only traveling as the sun is shining and the weather is warm and the water is warm enough to swim in. So therefore, there are the famous Chinese New Year and October national holiday golden weeks, where some also use the opportunity to come to Europe. So like this year, Chinese New Year fell on a date where it was easy to have 10 days of holidays with just 1 day of absence from work. So, and then they come to Europe, but in many cases, the distance is too far. So if you have only 1 week to spend 1 day flying to Europe and 1 day flying back to China, many Chinese don't see this as so effective. So therefore, we see small peaks during the Chinese Golden Week, where all China has free for a week, but it's not as important as it is maybe for Southeast Asia or even Australia. So it is much more that. So the question, what is the reason to travel? And so you can do shopping all year. You can do photography all year. You can attend events all year. So there is no clear seasonality pattern for the Chinese customers as you would have them for, let's say, German or French visitors. Especially if you see that not all Chinese travelers are only coming here for leisure.
Yeah, thanks. I also have a question here asking specifically about Chinese travel to the northern part of Europe. So people are asking, the question was asking, what are the key drivers for Chinese travel to the northern Europe? I would start with some answers from my side. So yes, that's exactly with what we have observed. COTRI, as in COTRI, we are actually monitoring 60 destinations all over the world where Chinese travel to. We monitor those destinations by month arrivals, and also we look at what kind of way they travel, how they travel by FIT or in group, or where are they from, which level of city. So we record all those information. So yes, I agree with you. So at this moment, we do see actually in the past especially in the past year, the Chinese arrival to the northern part of Europe, we see very strong growth. So probably the answer in short is that it's pretty much for Chinese the new destination. If you can see me, you can see my fingers showing this new destination. Although northern Europe part is always there, but for Chinese, after especially the Chinese travelers have come to like France and also Germany, the major West, well, for Chinese, they call it West Europe, this part. And then when they start looking further, they are looking for new destination. And what we observe, especially through also our constant ethnography to monitor the Chinese market, we also find that there are lots of mentionings about northern part, about the Finland, about going to see the Santa Claus village, and also mentioning to see the snow. So it's kind of hot as well. So it's more like a trend. And another point is that earlier, as Professor Out already mentioned and also showed the data that while last year for the Greater China, the arrival has actually decreased for 5%, the rest of the world had more than 12% increase. So from our number here, our data here is that we can see, for example, Finland has gained 30% increase in 2016 compared to 15. For example, Iceland had 40% increase last year as well. One of the biggest winners, we will call that. And Norway got 37% increase last year as well. Also, like Estonia, Baltic country, also get 11% increase. Lithuania, and the list can go on. So all got very strong increase from the Chinese market. So while the Chinese travelers are slowly moving away from the Greater China region, we definitely see more other part of the world have the increase. For northern part, again, for the more northern part of the Europe, we would say we need to consider also the major events, what we would call more negatively have the impact on the Chinese travel, with the terrorist attacks, and also the refugee crisis information that the Chinese market perceived last year. So all of that have put as the information and also the input impact to move the Chinese market seeking new and also perceived a more safer, as what they can perceive, safe destination.
Okay, so maybe I can add, and then I think we have to move on. I can add just one point. I think what we can see in the image is that it is very much Northern Europe is seen as a clean place with very fresh air. So this idea of whiteness, of snow, of clean air, that this is something which is especially connected with the image. Okay, so there will be a second question answer session at the end of the webinar. So please still continue to send your questions if you have any. So we will go on now with looking at the specific structure of the Chinese tourism industry and successful interaction with Chinese business partners. And well, this is talking about dealing with the Chinese, so probably it's only appropriate that I give this to my Chinese colleague, to Minion. So please, Minion, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. We start looking at China. What I'm going to cover in this session is actually really about the structure of the Chinese tourism industry. And then I will give you some practical information, tips actually, about how to successfully interact with your Chinese business partners. So first, CNTA, the Chinese National Tourism Administration, they are the national authority. They are in charge of basically almost everything in the tourism related. They are looking after the inbound, domestic, and also definitely outbound travel in China. CNTA especially, they work together with the local authorities to partner with the foreign national tourism offices to carry out marketing events and also promotion. For example, what we have today is the 2018 EU-China Tourism Year. So that's a major, I would say, responsibility of the CNTA. CNTA also is responsible for issuing licenses to outbound travel agents, and also deal with any complaint, and they can take licenses back. So in China, while under CNTA, the tourism industry is pretty much dominated by the state-owned tourism tour operators. When we say that, if anyone has already had experience dealing with China, you are quite confused about the CITS, CTS, CYTS, all of them. So while the brands are pretty identical, so what happened was that in Chinese market, especially a bit more earlier in the beginning stage phrase, the Chinese tour operators, they actually started having price war and compete on price. So there was the so-called $0 tours, where Chinese tour operators, they sell the products in very low price, But then, while the tourists bought those low-price $0 tours, and when they go on travel, they are forced to go shopping, and then all these shopping commissions will be paid back to tour operators as subsidy. So this damages the destination image in the long run, and also Chinese tourist satisfaction goes low as well. That's why there was the Chinese tourism law to forbidden it. Then if we move to the next slide, because what I want to mention to you is that also the online, later when we talk about online travel agents, we will see why the online travel agents are gaining more and more popularity, not only just the technology advance, but also the competition of the tour operator in China as well. So around 10% of the Chinese travel agents, they have the outbound travel the outbound travel license. So these are issued by the CNTA, and the non-Chinese companies cannot market or manage tours to come overseas. So we had questions earlier coming in asking about working with the Chinese office. Later we will address that in a Q&A session. They are the two biggest Chinese travel groups, the Hong Kong CTS and CITS. They merged last year and become the largest one. Again, the largest state-owned travel group. So if we move on to the next slide, as I mentioned, because of the quite bad really competition in China among the tour operators, the very negative media report about all this competition, these $0 tours, and also how the Chinese tourists were bullied actually by tour guide and tour leaders because they were forced to go shopping. So the popularity of joining group tour not only pushed more tourists Chinese tourists that considering about FIT travel, but also on the other hand also was helpful for the online travel agents to get more market share as well. Along with the advancement of the technology, so currently we see 20% of the market penetration of the Chinese OTAs. These are the Chinese online travel agents. But in the meanwhile, what we observed is that also the Chinese retail travel agents, those ones with retail offices in China, they are still having their market share. They hold relatively strongly. The reason is because for Chinese tourists to be able to travel overseas, they do need to actually obtain visas and also to buy to buy international tickets. And also, while they are traveling overseas, one big issue is about the language barrier as well. So the traditional travel agents, they still have quite strong bond with the Chinese travelers. For this part, later when we talk further into how to interact with the partners, we will explain a bit more. So the Chinese online travel agents, we can see much more colorful here, and Ctrip is by far the biggest one. More than 1/3 of market share goes to Ctrip, and but Tuniu, the one with the very cute ox head there, they have the largest outbound, especially for the holiday bookings. And on the left side is seems like Chinese really like the animal logo there. So very cute flying pig. This is the latest player has joined the market. It's actually the rebranded from the former AliTrip. AliTrip is part of Alibaba, the biggest online retailer in China. So they are more the fliggy, they call them fliggy. They are more focused on the younger traveler market. And we can also see on this slide, there are also many other Chinese online travel agents and also other online portals. For example, the Ma Fengwo, the one with the yellow background, that one is actually a user-generated content where Chinese post their travel blogs and pictures and share their experience as well. For anyone that is interested in China, you need to know a bit more about that part as well. So we brought you also some information about pretty much before the beginning of 2000. So CTRIP started, Yilong started, and then of course later China joined. So for more than a decade, that the whole Chinese online travel market was pretty much also about drill down the price and price competition. Only until 2015, large events happened at CTRIP, bought the majority a stake of Yilong, and also did share swap with Baidu. So really, CTRIP has consolidated its leader position in China. So here, what you can see is that CTRIP, as we mentioned, the largest one on the left-hand side of the little ring, CTRIP, China, and AliTrip are the largest one with largest market share in last year Q1 2016. As we mentioned earlier, if you look at right-hand side, these are the holiday products. So online booking in China, three big major parts: accommodation, tickets, and also the holiday. So Tuniu by far has the largest market share about the holiday products booking in China. All right. As a mainland China-born Chinese, I think I do have some to say about how to interact with Chinese. But this is pretty much, I would say, for anyone who wants to start a new business or a new market to approach it, is that do your research. Research. Understand the market, not only by just reading about the short description if you are provided for any trade event, saying that, okay, CITS based in Beijing and so on. You need to do further. You need to know more about it. You need to know also what's their requirement, what's their needs, and also which part of destination they are mainly focused on, and also which target market they do. How to know that? What you can do is definitely work closely with your local representative from your national or regional tourism organizations. And also, of course, with the trade associations as well in your region, in your country. Second point is that very important is to make sure you translate your product information, your brochure, anything that you want to present to people in China. For example, if you go to either this year the ITB China, or you go to the World Bridge Tourism Project, the half-day conference, make sure you translate your information. All right, and also bring your own interpreter. These are all related to the language barrier that you do need to watch. And of course, later we will also address some questions asking about how to work on social media. So this WeChat part I will skip, but this is one of the major social media channel in China. When you are working with Chinese partners, just make sure you are flexible in terms of time, in terms of making appointment. And also many things are different in China. Like, for example, here we have a very interesting figure about all the delays of the airport in China. So also watch the Chinese national holidays. This time, do not travel to China to do your road show or do your promotion or sales trip. Yes. So we are going to move to the next part, where I will pass this presentation back to Professor Out. He is going to introduce you about the ITB China.
Yes, thank you, Minion. Obviously, the question how to deal successfully with Chinese business partners, that would be a topic for a webinar all by its own, and so maybe we will do one in the near future for this. So, coming back to the core topic, so we are doing the webinar today because next year will be the 2018 EU-China Tourism Year, and this year already the World Bridge Tourism is a kind of, as we said, a curtain raiser for this. And both these activities are connected to the ITB China, so therefore let me spend just a few minutes on what is the ITB China offering. So it is happening for the first time this year from May 10 to 12 in Shanghai. And probably we all know the ITB Berlin, which has a history of more than 50 years now and is a leading travel trade show in the world. And I'm happy to say that Berlin is my hometown, so I'm very proud that we are the home of the biggest trade show, and I'm sure I will meet many of you next month in Berlin. So since about almost 10 years, ITB has branched out to Singapore for the ITB Asia very successfully, but this year ITB China is starting, so paying homage to the biggest outbound tourism source market in the world. And so this is a purely B2B show, so this is only done for meetings between people from the industry, and it is also with a strong focus on outgoing. And so you find some of the logos we just have been looking at again here. So there are buyers from more than 600 companies, and among them are all the major companies for the trips to Europe. You see C-Trip, you see Piggy, Tunyu, U-Tour, Kaisa, but also companies like Haiwan or Jinjiang Travel, which is the travel part of the Jinjiang Hotel Group, which is the biggest hotel group in Asia, and many others. So why are we talking about the ITB China here? Because ITB China is a partner of all of the activities we are talking about here. So there will be a major Europe pavilion at ITB China, which will showcase a multitude of European tourism products and destinations. And you see the countries which already have confirmed the national presences, and actually there are, I think, a few more in the pipeline. And so World Bridge Tourism will have on the 9th and 10th of May, so the day before and the first day of the fair, a conference on the 9th. I'm very happy to be involved with in a big way, and I can promise you it will be a very interesting event. And on the 10th, then there will be what Dr. Eric Philippart has been speaking about in his opening remarks. There will be face-to-face, one-to-one meetings, so we can call this speed dating, meetings between 150 European SMEs from different fields of the tourism industry and Chinese counterparts to give opportunity for direct business talks and hopefully business developing from this. So you can see the buyers are all from Greater China, so some of them will also come from Hong Kong, Macau, and there is at least 12,000 matchmaking events also inside then the ITB. And obviously this covers all areas from NTOs to operators to hotels to MICE to carriers and so on. And so just some of the exhibitors are named here on the European side. Besides those who have been mentioned before, you see all the major players are there, but also from Asia, from Africa, from North South America. There are a lot of organizations and companies exhibiting there. So as I said, hopefully let's meet in Shanghai. So this is the ITB, our partner, and so a few words before we come to the second Q&A session about the project itself. So So the EU China Tourism Year will take place next year. The opening will be in January. It is discussed that this will be a very famous and prestigious venue in Europe. I think it's not officially announced yet, so but make sure you follow this development, and the World Bridge Tourism Project. So the 2018 EU China Tourism Year is a unique opportunity and goes back to an agreement between Monsieur Juncker, the President of the European Commission, and Premier Li Keqiang from July last year. And so there is the idea that we go and strengthen and further extend our position in the markets. As we have seen, there is a huge interest in going to Europe and going to Europe to different places. And I have a short video.
The experiences that it's a very different market. Different, even if we just look at how the social media is going. I'm sure many of you here already have the experience, but also probably some don't. In China, there's no Facebook, no Twitter, no Instagram has never become bigger, but everything in China, there is the Chinese version of it. So there's the WeChat, the search engine is not Google but Baidu. Also there's the very major blog website, the Chinese Weibo. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the WeChat has 850 million users, active users actually, for WeChat. And this is actually really the major channel where Chinese tourists, and also actually in general for Chinese, to be connected with their social network, and also to share their pictures, and also to share their travel experience. So some people were asking earlier in the question whether WeChat is important and which channel can make them quite visible. If you're really committed to the Chinese market, you do need to actually get to find out how to work on this WeChat, use WeChat, but probably not alone, but either working with your tourism office, national tourism office, or regional tourism office, or find partners work together on that. But you do need to also provide interesting content for that as well. Professor Al, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, but just quickly, the last point I think is important here is so it is certainly not the point for, especially if you're for one company, to say, okay, I open an office in China and have Chinese-speaking staff right away. So it's much more important that you enter existing networks, because to have a WeChat account which has 27 followers is not very effective. It's much better to go the way and connect into existing networks. So of course, how to do this in detail with a Chinese partner or without a Chinese partner depends very much on what are you, if you're a tour operator, or if you're an attraction or a transportation company. But certainly it's a good idea always to see who else in your region or for your topic, so that can also be transnational. If you have something very special to offer, you find similar offers or your competitors in other countries, and join together with them to address with a common website or common social media activities the Chinese market.
Okay, great. We probably still have time to address one question. I have here someone is asking, are Chinese travel companies staff able to operate an English language reservation system for bookings in Europe. I would say yes, they probably can, but I would say definitely they would prefer not. Because as we mentioned earlier, there are always different replacement in Chinese language setting that Chinese tour operators can have. So if they can have a choice, they definitely would opt to for the for the Chinese language reservation system. So if you have website, if you have your blogs, if you want to really seriously approach Chinese market, you also need to consider about translate your content into Chinese and to at least give Chinese, either the tour operator or Chinese tourists, the chance to have some information in Chinese. It makes them feel comfortable and make them feel also in a way respected that you have their language displayed there as well.
Yes. So this is maybe just and then I think we have one more question, then we have to finish. But just to add to this, exactly as you just said. So this is for many people, it's a question of language ability. Their English is not very good or non-existent. But even for those Chinese who have quite a good command of English, it will be a show of respect and a show of your preparedness that they can see, you went the extra mile to prepare by having Chinese language materials, by having certification, by having trainings, and so on. That you did something and you can prove it, especially for the Chinese market. So there's not only the practical side, there's also the symbolic side of. So if you tell people, yeah, we take the Chinese market very seriously, and you don't even have a small Chinese website, and then people will not believe you.
Yeah. We probably have the time for the last one, as you said. So because I have a few questions I can see here asking about what is the best way, or whether there's any travel organization providing list of travel agencies that's selling Europe. And also earlier there was the question asking about the list or the contact of a Chinese tour operator. So to answer this question, I think we probably has addressed this, has stressed about this a few times, is that it is quite important to work together with your national tourism office or your regional one or your trade association to find out whether they already have some list there, because they are working with different international markets, and very often they have actually either the Asian market or China. Yes.
Yeah, but this is, if I can jump in here. So, but the point is, I mean, this is why this whole bridge project and the EU China Tourism Year is happening. So there's a list of the 3,000 Chinese outbound tour operators, and we have it also in COTRI. But the point is, there is no point to send an email to the 3,000 companies saying, hello, we have a wonderful hotel on this and this island, and this and this country. So this will not work. So you need to have this done within a network. This is why this group of 150 European companies will go to China in May, and why the respective group of Chinese operators will come to London in November. Because the experience is, of course, for the Chinese tour operators, they have most of them are experts for the whole world, and they so there is no point in just saying, okay, I sent an email telling them what are the prices of my hotel or what is the attraction of my museum. This will not work. So you have to do this in a more systematic and in a more network way. So this is, I have to say, well, COTRI has a history now of 13 years, and this request has been given to us from the beginning. But I can tell you, unfortunately, that the result of sending out thousands of emails to Chinese companies is zero. This is not the way to do it. So this is, I think, we have to thank the European Commission and the European Union that they have been starting this activities run by European German Commission, where we've been working in this field successfully and importantly for many, many years, including also ETOA, that this is a much more promising way to get real business connection in China than just sending out mass emails, which will not get much attention in China.
Yes, I totally agree. Professor Out, looking at the time, I don't think we will continue with questions, but for our audience, we would like to remind you that we will definitely follow up with you with your questions, because there are still many questions we haven't addressed, and also there are also questions coming before the webinar. We will come to you with email to address your specific question or ask you to specify what you the information you are seeking for. So I will now pass Professor Out to have the closing remark here.
Yes, and I'm starting this by telling you that after we finish the webinar, there will be a survey popping up on your screen, a very short one, and we would like you very much to answer that. So we will do a second webinar in September or October, and of course we want to learn what is the topics you are most interested in, what you thought today was given too much or too little time. So please be so kind, it's just a minute to do that. And the second point is, well, we had a very good number of attendees today, and what I could see on my control panel here, that most of you have been actually following us from the beginning to the end. Thank you very much for that. But of course, there will be a lot of colleagues within your company, within your network, within your destination, who didn't have the opportunity to watch. So please alert them to the fact that there is, and you can see this on the screen here. So there are the websites of the European China Tourism Year, of ETOA, and also our own ChinaOutbound.com, where you will be able to download the webinar. So please tell your colleagues and friends about this opportunity, that they can do that. So other than that, I think from the information, it should have become clear that the time to address the Chinese market is better than ever now, and that it is something which is becoming more and more possible to do for also smaller companies and smaller destinations, if you do it the right way and if you do it within a network, and the organizations who are behind the World Bridge Tourism Project are all there to help you with that. So with this, I think we will close the webinar for now. Thank you all very much, and I wish you all a very good time and a very big success in your engagement with the Chinese market. Many thanks also to you, and of course our thank goes to the European Union, who's funding the whole project, and our colleagues at ETC, ETOA, Kairos, and Welcome Chinese. So thank you, and goodbye to all of you. Take care.